Yeah. That's how this arc can basically be summed up. Yes, we have now reached the Thouser Arc, and it starts by Guy issuing a challenge to Aruto about who will win Hidden Intelligence. And it isn't sounds how you think. Stupid. Because as opposed to Aruto saying no and to piss off, the next string of episodes just get petty. Seeing Humagears and normal people compete at certain jobs, like, for example, lawyer, real estate agent, fireman, it's downright asinine. And you want to know what's the worst part about it? Zaya cheats. I'll admit, I only liked 2 episodes in the competition arc. 3 or a few more because of the good stories and the introduction to Metal Cluster. But everything else is And for Metal Cluster, we'll get to that in a moment. So, episode 17, I am the only president and KamenRider. It sets up the new status quo. Yaiba is transferred back to Zaya and is Guy's right-hand woman, and Hirobi is still alive, but on lockdown. This is also where we get the introduction of KamenRider Thouser, who is Guy, of course. So, let's talk about his suit, because I will say, I do really like Thouser's suit. I love the colors. I really like how this suit is made. It just looks gorgeous. And while we're still going on about Thouser, I will say that I really do like his arsenal too. His driver and the sword. That driver to me just looks beautiful immediately. It's simple but royal, and when it opens up, it's so much better. Not to mention, he utilizes a Zetsume key and a Progrise key. And he also gets the sword, the Thousand Jacker. And I like how that sword looks. Not to mention, he can also absorb data from his opponents and use it against them, which actually comes into play quite a number of times in this show, or at least it comes into play quite a couple of times going forward. And so, episode 18 introduces the Raid Riser, crafted by Zaya so that humans can transform into raiders. So, I actually want to take a moment to talk about the Raid Riser belt, because that's another belt in this show that I quite like. And I think it's because it's parallel, so you put in keys going that way. It just looks cool to me. And so, the arc is still around, and there's also a new feature installed in the Humagears. Instead of manually hacking into them, when a Humagear feels malice from humans, they transform into Magias. And so, in episode 22, everyone learns that Guy is responsible for everything. The Arc, Metsubo Jinrai, all him. And Aruto is just pissed. So pissed that he lets Guy sideswipe him and insert a new progress key with the power of the Arc inside the 01 driver. And this is 01's mid-season form, Metal Cluster Hopper. Let's talk about the suit. Alright, so Metal Cluster Hopper's look. I like the rest of the suit, but I think what's keeping me from fully liking it might be the head. Because I definitely do get the tone and what they're trying to do. But, I don't know, that's just me. And so, Metal Cluster Hopper is again powered by the Arc. And in its first use, Aruto has no control of himself and whoops Thouser's ass a new one. So that at least answers my question of why Guy didn't use it himself. Second is that it blocks the 01 driver from reading other progress keys, so Metal Cluster is the only usable one. Episode 24, Izu calls an SOS from all Humagears to counter the Arc and fix the Metal Cluster key so that the next time Aruto uses it, he'll be in full control. And he does so thanks to Metal Cluster's weapon, the Progress Hopper Blade. And at the end of episode 24, Hirobi breaks out of confinement. So, episode 25, Jin comes back by hacking and mind-controlling a Humagear who creates Humagears to jam Izu's connection to Zeya so that he could rebuild himself. How was Jin even able to rebuild himself after he was destroyed?
Maximum effort.
Explanation later, Jin comes back and takes up a new form with his new driver, the Slash Riser. So let's talk about Burning Falcon. I kind of gotta be honest right now. You see Red a lot. So, I don't know. The suit's not bad. I just really like his first form a lot more because of how different it was. That's just me. So, the rest of the episode is a recap and explains new things about Hirobi and Jin. Mainly that they were regular Humagears until they reached Singularity and the Arc turned them evil. As for more info on Hirobi, before he joined Metsubo Jinrai, he was programmed to be a father-type Humagear. More on that later. It's important to remember and plays a part for the rest of the show. Other than that, Zaya or Guy is truly evil, seeing everything he's done as a big business venture, because if 01's out of the way, then either Metsubo Jinrai will go running wild and crazy, and he'll just have the raid riders made so that people can defend themselves. But who knows? Everything to him is all about money, and he does not give a shit for a second. And so, in episode 27, Jin gets back Hirobi's progress key, and Guy reveals to Fua that him and Yaiba have AIs installed into their brains to be able to transform. But for Fua, he's also carrying the fourth member of Metsubo Jinrai. Okay, here we are. Episode 28 pisses me off something fierce. It's a politically charged episode with politicians that I know are supposed to represent Republicans with how Zaya denies and throws prejudice to sway the public. It takes my problems with this arc and shoves it in the front. But you know what's the most damning thing about it? And I wish I had a cup of water or something before I shout this line. The good guys justify it. The rapper Humagear, check it out, flips his shit, giving into it, and pretty much justifying the negative thoughts on Humagears.
But rappers are not black leaders. They're just rappers. Stop negotiating with them.
Aside from my feelings, Yaiba is given a raid riser to deal with Check It Out because Guy slips him a Zetsume riser on camera. I'm sorry, I gotta bring up another thing. Izu has a built-in camera So the entire time, she could have recorded Guy's confessions and brought it to the authorities. This arc could have been resolved in an episode and a half if someone had thought of that. Yeah, aside from my feelings, Yaiba becomes the fighting jackal raider and kills Check It Out. Check It Out fucked himself up, so I don't care that he died. Episode 29. Everything now comes to the people's vote, and Zaya buys out Hidden Intelligence. We also learn about the final Metsubo Jinrai member, Naki, and they were the one handing out the raid risers and controlling Fua to break Hirobi out. Guy keeps trying to control Fua with Naki in his head and gives him a new progress key. His mistake, because Fua's willpower is so strong that he resists Naki and now can access his final form, Rampage Vulcan. Now let's talk about that suit. Honestly, it's actually not bad. It's actually quite clever because it explains his powers. He has the power of like every animal form in this show, like every animal form in this show up to now. 01, his own, Valkyries, Ikazuchi, no, not Ikazuchi, Jin and Hirobi's. He has all of their powers together, and he can actually combine their abilities too for special attacks. So yeah, this suit and powers, all pretty good. So sweet. So Guy now owns Hidden Intelligence. Aruto's staff isn't fired, just offered if they want to leave voluntarily. And Aruto does, ending the Thouser Arc, no longer as president, but as a man still towards a dream. Okay, so let's get this out of the way right now. The Thouser Arc is not the best arc of this show. I want to say not good, but there's so much actually to consider. The only good episodes were the ones that weren't about the dumb competitions arc, and there aren't a lot of those. Guy as a villain is fantastic, and he fits the show and adds on to the story. The only problem is that the arc is solvable. Instead of taking part in a dumb competition for the sake of your own company that Aruto inherited, he could have said no and brushed him off. And at the end of the arc, you look at him and say, well, it's your own damn fault. Like, how many times has Facebook been under fire and yet still managed to recover? Same comparison. But why I can't seem to call it bad, but don't get me wrong, it is bad and flat out offensive to me. Because once again, one of the undertones of this show is racism, and people really let out their prejudice in this, especially in this arc. And the reactions it got out of me, it made me hate it more. So maybe that was the point, I think, for the job competitions. Which, don't get me wrong, it was just stupid. But seeing all that real prejudice, it really grinded my gears. So maybe I was supposed to be frustrated. Maybe. Well, I need a cup of water. Next time, part 3. Stay tuned.
Let's ride.